Ayanokoji walks into a room, and most people make the same mistake. They look at him and see someone ordinary, quiet, unimpressive, easy to underestimate, and that's exactly why he has an advantage. While everyone is busy deciding who looks important, he's watching who talks the most, who interrupts, who is nervous, who is pretending to be confident, who follows the group. Who does everyone else listen to before making a decision? By the time most people realize there's more happening beneath the surface, he has already seen the pattern, and that is the first thing you need to understand about becoming dangerously intelligent. Intelligence is not what you know, it's what you notice before everyone else does, because right now, there are people who know more facts than you and still make terrible decisions. There are people with incredible grades who can be manipulated by anyone who understands their emotions. There are people who sound intelligent but panic the moment reality doesn't go according to their plan. And then there are people who don't need to talk much, because when they finally speak, they've been paying attention the entire time. That is the kind of intelligence we're talking about. Not becoming a cold, emotionless manipulator, not pretending you're a genius, and definitely not copying every extreme thing a fictional character does. We're taking the most powerful parts of the Ayanokoji mindset and turning them into something real. How to observe without jumping to conclusions. How to stay calm when everyone else is giving away information. How to see the second and third consequence of a decision. How to understand what actually motivates people. And most importantly, how to stop your own emotions, ego, and distractions from making decisions for you. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. You could have a brilliant mind and still lose to someone less intelligent than you. Your ego can be used against you. So before you learn to understand other people, you need to understand the person controlling you the most, yourself. And that starts with a skill almost nobody trains. 1. See what is actually there. Imagine this. Your friend walks past you and doesn't say hello. Immediately, your brain says, "They're angry with me." Someone reads your message but doesn't reply. "They're ignoring me." Your teacher looks disappointed. "They think I'm stupid." Do you notice what happened? None of those things were facts. Something happened, and your brain instantly wrote a story about it. This is one of the biggest reasons people make bad decisions. They don't react to reality. They react to their interpretation of reality. Ayanokoji's advantage comes from something much simpler than being a genius. Before you react, ask, "What evidence do I actually have?" Then ask, "What else could explain this?" Maybe they're busy. Maybe they haven't seen it. Maybe something happened. Maybe they are angry. The point isn't to assume everything is fine. The point is to stop pretending your first guess is automatically reality. Because the person who reaches a conclusion first isn't always the smartest person in the room. Ayanokoji's advantage comes from something much simpler than being a genius. He doesn't need to decide what something means immediately. He watches. He collects information. He waits for the pattern. And that's your first weapon. From today, separate every important situation into 2 columns. What I know and what I think it means. Your friend hasn't replied. What you know, they haven't replied. What you think it means, they're angry. Those are completely different things. And here's where this becomes powerful. Before you react, ask, "What evidence do I actually have?" Then ask, "What else could explain this?" Maybe they're busy. Maybe they haven't seen it. Maybe something happened. Maybe they are angry. The point isn't to assume everything is fine. The point is to stop pretending your first guess is automatically reality. Because the person who reaches a conclusion first isn't always the smartest person in the room. Sometimes they're just the first person to stop thinking. And Ayanokoji's method begins with refusing to stop too early. But observation has a second level, and this is where things get interesting. Because sometimes the most important information isn't in what people say, it's in why they say it. 2. Stop listening only to words. Imagine someone says, "I'm fine." That sentence can mean almost anything. They might genuinely be fine, or they might be upset and don't want to talk. That's stupid. The goal isn't to become paranoid and assume everyone is secretly lying. The goal is to understand a more useful principle. Words are one piece of information. Patterns are another. A person can tell you what they believe, but repeated actions show you what they prioritize. Someone says they want to become successful. What do they repeatedly do when nobody is watching? Someone says loyalty matters to them. What happens when being loyal becomes inconvenient? Someone says they want to improve. What happens the moment improving becomes uncomfortable? That's where patterns become valuable, and here's the uncomfortable part. You need to use this method on yourself. You can tell yourself, I'm disciplined, but your schedule might tell a completely different story. You can say, I want to become successful, but your actions may repeatedly choose comfort. You can say, I don't have enough time, but somehow hours disappear every week without you noticing. Your words describe the person you want to be. Your patterns reveal the person you're currently training yourself to become. That isn't meant to make you feel bad. It's meant to give you something far more valuable: accurate information. And intelligence begins with accurate information. Because you cannot solve a problem while lying about what the problem is. But there's another reason patterns matter. Once you understand how people behave repeatedly, you can start asking a much more powerful question. What happens next? 3. The question that makes you think ahead. Most people make decisions based on the first consequence. Strategic thinkers keep going. You skip your work. First consequence? More free time. But then what? You have more work tomorrow. Then what? You become stressed. Then what? You rush. Then what? The quality gets worse. One decision, a chain of consequences. This is one of the simplest ways to think more strategically. When you're about to make an important decision, ask, and then what? Not once, multiple times. Someone insults you. Your first instinct is to insult them back. Okay, and then what? The argument gets worse. And then what? Maybe you say something you regret. And then what? Now you're dealing with consequences that didn't exist before. This doesn't mean every argument should be avoided. It means you should know what your decision is likely to create before your emotions choose for you. Ayanokoji rarely treats the first move as the entire game. And that's the mindset you want. Don't just ask, what happens if I do this? Ask, what does this decision make more likely after that? This changes how you think about almost everything. Money, friendships, school, goals, your habits. Because your life isn't usually changed by one dramatic decision, it's changed by chains. Small decisions create conditions. Those conditions make other decisions easier, and eventually, you wake up somewhere you never consciously decided to go. And this leads to one of the biggest differences between reactive people and strategic people. Reactive people ask, what do I feel like doing? Strategic people ask, where does this lead? But thinking ahead is useless if you lose control the moment emotions enter the situation. And that's where most people give away their biggest weakness. 4. Never give your first emotion the final word. Someone insults you. You feel angry. That's normal. Someone embarrasses you. You feel uncomfortable. Normal. Someone does better than you. You feel jealous. Also normal. The problem isn't the emotion. The problem begins when you automatically obey it. This is something people misunderstand about Ayanokoji. The useful lesson isn't, don't feel. The useful lesson is, don't let the first emotion make every decision. Because emotions are fast. And fast isn't always bad. But fast doesn't always mean accurate. Anger can make you focus only on what someone did to you. Fear can make every risk look bigger than it is. Jealousy can make another person's success feel like your failure. Embarrassment can convince you to avoid something that would actually help you grow. So instead of asking, how do I stop feeling this? Ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Then ask the more important question, what action actually helps me? Imagine someone says something designed to provoke you. The easiest thing in the world is to react, and that's exactly why it's predictable. But if you pause, you gain something, information. So instead of asking, how do I stop feeling this? Ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Then ask the more important question, what action actually helps me? Imagine someone says something designed to provoke you. The easiest thing in the world is to react, and that's exactly why it's predictable. But if you pause, you gain something. Information. You can observe the situation. Why did they say that? What do they want from my reaction? What do they want from my reaction? Is reacting actually useful? Sometimes you should respond. Sometimes you shouldn't. But now the decision belongs to you, not your first emotion. And here's something worth remembering. The person who controls your emotional state can influence your behavior. So train the pause. Not because silence makes you mysterious, because the pause gives your intelligence time to arrive. What do they want from my reaction? Is reacting actually useful? Sometimes you should respond. Sometimes you shouldn't. But now the decision belongs to you, not your first emotion. And here's something worth remembering. The person who controls your emotional state can influence your behavior. So train the pause, not because silence makes you mysterious, and once you've mastered that, you can train something even more valuable. The ability to think when everyone else is distracted. 5. Your attention is your intelligence's fuel. Here's a brutal question. When was the last time you sat with one difficult problem long enough to become genuinely confused? Not watched someone explain it. Not searched for the answer after 30 seconds. Actually stayed with it. Most people can't. The moment thinking becomes uncomfortable, they escape. Phone, video, music, messages, anything. And over time, their brain learns something dangerous. Difficulty means leave, but deep thinking happens after the easy answers disappear. Actually stayed with it. Most people can't. The moment thinking becomes uncomfortable, they escape. Phone, video, music, messages, anything. And over time, their brain learns something dangerous. Difficulty means leave, but deep thinking happens after the easy answers disappear. Think about solving a difficult problem. At first, you try what you already know. That doesn't work. Now you're stuck. This is the moment most people quit. But if you remain, your brain has to search somewhere else. You start connecting ideas. You notice details. You test possibilities. And eventually, sometimes after a long period of confusion, something clicks. That click is not magic. It's what happens when you stay with a thought long enough to move beyond the obvious. The problem is that modern life trains the opposite. We are constantly fed answers. What should you think? Here's a video. What should you buy? Here's an ad. What should you believe? Here's someone shouting their opinion with absolute confidence. You can spend your entire life consuming other people's thinking and mistake that for developing your own. So do something most people avoid. Spend time with your own thoughts. Take one question, one difficult problem, one idea, and don't immediately search for the answer. Think first. Write what you believe. Ask why. Try to find holes in your own argument, then learn more. This is how you stop becoming a storage device for information and start becoming someone who can actually use it. But there is one enemy that can destroy this entire process, and you probably don't even realize how often it controls you. Your ego. 6. The intelligence trap. Needing to look smart. This is the reason some people stop improving even when they have enormous potential. They become attached to the image of being intelligent, and suddenly everything changes. They stop asking questions because they don't want to look inexperienced. They pretend to understand things they don't understand. They argue when they're clearly wrong. They avoid difficult subjects because being a beginner hurts their ego. And without realizing it, they've chosen looking smart over becoming smarter. That is one of the worst trades you can make. Because real learning is embarrassing sometimes. You will misunderstand things. You will ask obvious questions. You will discover that something you believed for years was wrong. Good. That's not evidence that you're stupid. That's evidence you're actually learning. The person who never feels stupid is often just avoiding anything difficult enough to expose what they don't know. So adopt this mindset. Your job is not to defend your current intelligence. Your job is to improve it. If someone gives you better information, take it. If you're wrong, update. If you don't understand, ask. You don't lose intelligence by admitting you don't know. You lose opportunities to learn when you pretend you do. And this gives you one of the most powerful advantages you can build. You become adaptable because the world doesn't reward people simply for having an opinion. Reality rewards people who can adjust when reality proves them wrong. 7. Learn to be wrong faster. Read that again. Not never be wrong faster, because you are going to be wrong about people, about yourself, about what will work, about what you should do next. That's unavoidable. But imagine two people. The first discovers their strategy isn't working. They keep doing it. Why? Because they already invested time. They don't want to admit they made a mistake. Months pass, nothing changes. The second person notices. This isn't working. They investigate, they adjust. They test something else. They fail again. They learn again. Who improves faster? The second person. Not because they fail less, because they learn more from reality. That's what intelligence looks like in real life. Not always having the right answer, reducing the time between being wrong and realizing it. That is an unbelievable advantage, because your ego wants to protect your past decisions. But your future doesn't care about your ego. Your future only cares what you do next. So when evidence appears, ask yourself, if I had no emotional attachment to this opinion, what would I believe now? That's a difficult question, especially when the easiest person to lie to is themselves. And once you stop lying to yourself, you can finally start building something powerful, a personal system for thinking. 8. Build your own mental operating system. The most dangerous thing you can do is live entirely on autopilot. Wake up, react, scroll, respond, consume. Sleep, repeat. Weeks disappear, then months. Then you wonder why nothing changed. So build moments where you stop and examine your own thinking. At the end of the day, spend 5 minutes asking, what surprised me today? What did I assume without evidence? Where did I react too quickly? What did someone do that revealed a pattern? What did I do that revealed a pattern about myself? What would I do differently if the same situation happened tomorrow? Write the answers. Because inside your head, your thoughts can feel organized even when they're completely confused. Writing exposes weak thinking. It forces you to be specific. You may think, I need to work harder. Okay. Harder at what? For how long? What are you avoiding? What specifically isn't working? Vague thinking creates vague action. Specific thinking creates useful decisions. This becomes your mental training ground. Every day, you collect information about yourself. You identify mistakes. You notice patterns. You test new approaches. Slowly, you build something far more valuable than motivation. Self-awareness, and self-awareness is dangerous in the best possible way. Because once you understand your weaknesses, you can work on them. They stop controlling you from the shadows. So let's make this practical. If you want to start building a sharper mind, don't try to transform your entire life tomorrow. Do this instead. When something happens, observe. What are the facts? What am I assuming? When someone speaks, look for the pattern. Not just what did they say. What do they repeatedly do? Before making a decision, think ahead. What happens next? And then what? When emotion takes over, pause. What am I feeling? What action actually helps me? When something becomes difficult, stay. Don't escape immediately. Give your brain time to think beyond the obvious. When you're wrong, update. Don't defend a bad idea because your ego chose it yesterday. At the end of the day, review. Study your thinking, because that's the real Ayanokoji Method. Not acting mysterious, not manipulating your friends, not trying to become emotionless, not pretending you're 10 steps ahead when you're not. The real advantage is much harder. You become the person who sees before reacting, thinks before speaking, questions before believing, and learns before repeating the same mistake. In the end, the most intelligent person isn't always the loudest person. Sometimes, they're the one listening while everyone else is desperate to be heard. They aren't impossible to fool because they know everything. They're difficult to fool because they don't automatically believe everything. They aren't calm because they never feel emotion. They're calm because emotion doesn't immediately control their next move. They aren't always right. But when they're wrong, they change. and that's what makes them dangerous. Not dangerous to other people, dangerous to manipulation, dangerous to distraction, dangerous to bad habits, dangerous to the old version of themselves that reacts without thinking. Because once you learn to control your attention, you become harder to distract. Once you learn to question your assumptions, you become harder to deceive. Once you learn to control your reactions, you become harder to provoke. And once you learn to admit when you're wrong, you become almost impossible to keep in the same place. So don't try to become Ayanokoji, become something more useful. Become you, with a mind you actually control. Starting today, don't just ask yourself, how can I become smarter? Ask, what am I not seeing? That question could change everything. Because intelligence isn't about having the fastest answer. Sometimes, it's having the patience to keep looking after everyone else thinks they've already found one. And that is where the real transformation begins. Observe more, react less, think further, and never stop upgrading the way you think. If you want more videos that turn the mindset and discipline of legendary anime characters into real-life skills, subscribe. And if you want to go deeper than these videos, if you want exclusive lessons, challenges, and to be part of a community of people who are actually serious about improving themselves, you can join the Evolve One membership. It's for those who don't just want to watch self-improvement, but actually want to put it into practice. The link is below. And if you want exclusive videos and want to go deeper than the content here, join the Evolve One membership. Don't just watch Evolve One, be part of it.